You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt Show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have on the Goldstein on Gelt Show Nathalie Nahai, who is a web psychologist and the best-selling author of Webs of Influence, the Psychology of Online Persuasion. Now, Nathalie, you coined the term web psychology. What's that all about?
So it was basically in an effort to bridge a whole bunch of different disciplines that can give us insights into how and why we behave the way that we do online. You'll have heard, no doubt, of behavioral sciences, of neuroscience, of human-computer interaction, UX, social psychology, cultural psychology. All of these different fields and many more can give us insights as to why we behave the way we do. But very few people were looking at the big picture and drawing these insights together. So I wanted to come up with a term that was more accessible than academic jargon to bring these things under one main umbrella and then write a book that people could really get their teeth into, kind of as a roadmap to online behavior.
So who is the book written for?
The book was written for businesses, so large businesses, small businesses. I found that the people who tended to read it the most, at least initially, were CEOs, which I found quite strange because I thought it would be more the marketers and designers. And since its release in 2012, it's moved more into the marketing space and also into the conversion rate optimization space. So designers, developers wishing to increase sales and engagements online.
So are normal people like me victims of what you teach in your book?
That's an excellent question. We do have the potential to be victims, but what I really find interesting is that when people talk about so-called users, this kind of distancing language that we hear, whether you're a designer or whoever you might be, we forget that we are all the users. No matter what tech or website or app or platform we develop, at some point it will collectively create a best practice principle that will then get applied that will also be subject to. And so in the book, the third part is about how to sell with integrity. So what does it look like to have the values and the intentions of your customers at the heart of what you do? Because you're right, any kind of persuasion principle that we use, we have to think about mutual benefits. I don't think one should ever just serve the needs of one person.
So let's dive into this integrity concept, because one of the things I've always thought in my day job, and in real life I'm a financial advisor. I do the radio gig once a week when I get to speak to neat people like you. But in most of the time I spend my time as a financial advisor, and I really see a huge part of what I do as teaching clients about how they can make the right decisions, because I'm not really a prophet. I can't predict the future. And though I can design plans for them, at the end of the day, people have to make their own choices. So education has become very important. And in the age of the internet, I create a huge amount of content. I write and I make videos and audios and podcasts, and because I'm constantly trying to teach, and I like to think that's the integrity. So that's all a long way of asking the question, which is, do people who produce a lot of content, are they fulfilling this requirement to develop or to present the integrity that they need compared to a lot of the garbage that's out there?
That's an interesting question. So I would say from that perspective, there are two things to look at. So the intention and the reality. So the intention is I want to help serve people, or I want to do good business that's going to be so good that it's going to benefit customers. They're going to want to come to me, and then I'll benefit through making, long-term customers and sales and the rest of it. So there's the intention. Then the reality of the thing is creating enough checks and balances to make sure that you're actually delivering on that intention. So whether that's you're creating, loads of content, or whether it's that you're running a conference, or that you're giving really good customer service, whatever way you're creating that value, you have to look at the intention behind it and then whether that delivers on actually serving people as well as yourself. And for that, typically it's kind of quite helpful to have some sort of process by which you assess your output, or you assess the relationship with the customers and what they feel they're getting in return.
What do you mean by that?
So a process might be, for instance, if you're creating an app to help people get healthier, you might say, okay, well, we're going to measure success based on the time spent on the app. So that means that people are obviously, doing something positive. However, if you're taking the time to create checks and balance approach where you then bring in 15 of your clients once a month and say, okay, what are the issues that you're facing here? Is this serving you? Is this draining your time? Is it draining your attention? Or actually, do you feel that there are certain benefits that you're accruing from this, as opposed to just creating a habit-forming behavior that doesn't have any real impact? Then you can start to assess the actual physical, real value that you're delivering to those customers. So it's not just enough to assume. You have to kind of have some way of assessing the real value that you're providing.
We're talking with Nathalie Nahai, who is an expert in web psychology. In fact, she coined the term web psychology, and I've been taking advantage of these few minutes that I've had with her to, in fact, ask her questions about one of my philosophies, which has been that on the web, in order to create a connection with the people who you want to be following you or buying from you, you have to give them something of real value, as opposed to giving them things that's just snazzy and bright and things moving around on the screen. And the difficult part of that is actually to create quality is a challenge. So tell me, what's the difference now between the way that the art, let's say, of marketing today and persuading people or bringing them over to your idea, and the way it was, let's say, 15, 20 years ago, 100 years ago?
Well, I think there are two main changes. The first is the fact that it's now bidirectional, or one-to-many or many-to-many, as opposed to just being a broadcasting way of saying, right, this is our billboard, you're going to sit and passively absorb it. Now, this we know about. What I find really interesting, the second piece, is around values. And so much research has shown that sort of the Gen X, so people roughly, I mean, there's some debate as to the exact age range, but roughly between the ages of 18 to 25, are becoming much more interested in buying from and engaging with companies that have values baked into their business model. So not just a bit of corporate social responsibility slapped onto the side, but for instance, companies like Tom's Shoes, where within their business model, they're actually doing something for social good. I know that in the States, I think this is called something like B-commerce, the idea of benefiting a wider group of people. So it's not just for profit, nor is it just non-profit. There's kind of social responsibility within the model. And I think that that's the thing that people are really finding, that if you can create that business model and then work from the inside out to generate that message, so any marketing message or advertising message that's aligned with that core value, you're much, much more likely to attract people at a deeper level and get that longer term loyalty and engagement and customer base.
Well, the cynic in me is wondering whether a lot of companies just present that and they'll say, well, we give to this charity, or we help in the communities, but really they just hire one person to make it look good, and at the end of the day, it makes the buyer feel better, but it's not actually really achieving any big goal.
Well, I think you're absolutely right to feel that way. And I think it's always really good to rigorously critique whatever it is that's presenting itself as a panacea or some kind of holy grail. But I think what's interesting is that we are finding, like we did in the food industry, when people started coming out with organic, we are finding similar desires or trends towards figuring out a way to do this within tech. I think marketing is perhaps sort of slightly later, but so the idea of e-commerce or the idea of tech for good, somehow figuring out a way to label companies and technologies that are serving people at a more values-based level without profit being the main motivator, or data mining being the great motivator, so that people can differentiate between one type of service and approach and another, so we can make wiser choices that are aligned with our goals. So how do we help people to live more fulfilling lives? Or maybe in that case, I'll choose this sort of tech, which I know has certain approaches baked into it. So giving people the choice to make that decision.
I think one of the other areas of the technology being brought into the relationship between the company and the consumer is that it simply becomes, it seems like a much more sterile connection, which is also, it means there's no real personal interaction, and it's very easy to switch from one to the other. So I would think from a corporate standpoint, maintaining customers when your business has just been commoditized instead of your personal service, it must be much more difficult.
Yeah, I think so. And I think what's interesting there is looking at how businesses are seeming to diversify away from just content, but also lived experiences. So things like running conferences or creating meetups or kind of events that people can come to, that they'll invite some of their maybe longer term customers to come and experience what it's like to be in relationship with them, present with them, to go through something together, to create that connection. And I think this is something that we're seeing on a wider basis. So looking at the craft movement, or looking at a more sort of tribal approach to creating smaller conferences or smaller festivals, there seems to be a longing and a desire to kind of connect with people at a deeper, more visceral, more embodied way. And I think that's something that we're seeing across many different countries in various spheres.
Yeah, I certainly, having been now in the financial business for over 20 years, and when I started, there was no real internet, and it was very, very much about the relationships. And although I feel that I'm very heavily on the web, like I have a big presence there, because I guess I have a good marketing person who handles it for me, at the end of the day, I don't work with clients, and I find this with the younger generation who say, Doug, just send me an email of what you need to know to open the account. I won't do that. And I'll say, listen, you have to come in because I got to talk to you. Because I feel it's more about seeing the person and listening and seeing how they react when we talk. And I know that there are places that are happy to do it so much more efficiently. And maybe it does seem more inefficient, the old-fashioned way to meet people. But I guess that's really a barrier that we have to overcome if we want to do business only on the web as opposed to more personalized.
Yeah, I mean, there's an interesting piece of research I was reading the other day about Skype meetings and sort of technology-mediated interactions with people. And so this research was basically saying that we tend to recall less information from a Skype meeting than we do from an in-person meeting. So you think, okay, well, I'm having this interview with you via Skype and we're communicating. I wonder how that's influencing maybe the quality of our attention or the depth of our conversation or whatever that might be. And so there are certain barriers to overcome with tech-mediated communication. But I think as technology improves, we'll be able to deal with those head on. So
I guess maybe we'll have holographic meetings when it'll actually look like you're here. Nathalie, we'll have to keep exploring the future of technology in a future interview, because unfortunately we're just about out of time. We've been talking to Nathalie Nahai, the woman who coined the phrase web psychology, a best-selling author. Nathalie, in the last few seconds, just tell us, how can people learn more about you and follow your work?
Great. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Nathalie Nahai. That's NATHALIENAHAI. I'm also at thewebpsychologist.com. And if you want to learn more about how to harness persuasive technology for good, I'm also running a conference in London called Humanize the Web, which is humanizetheweb.com. And you are warmly invited to come along if you fancy it.
Okay, and we will put links to all of that at the show notes of today's show at goldsteinongelt.com. Nathalie, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.